Valve finally revealed the Steam Frame last week, and even if you're a Quest 3 owner who plans on sticking with the Quest 3, this just changed everything, and not in the way that most people think. After years of quiet and speculation, Valve finally announced their Deckard, or now known as Steam Frame, last week, and it's launching in early 2026. This is the first real mainstream push from Valve into VR in years. And it's a massive sign that Valve is re-entering the arena for virtual reality. But it's also a signal of a shift in VR as a whole and VR momentum. You see, Valve is positioning their headset as a primarily streaming headset for PC VR. And yes, there are other things that it does as well, but in Valve's mind, they are primarily focusing on that dongle that plugs into your PC and the wireless streaming connection to play PC VR games on your Steam Frame. It doesn't mean that it doesn't work independently of a PC and allow you to install software, which we'll mention later on in this video, but it means that Valve's primary focus is still PC VR. And that's a massive shift in VR momentum compared to what we've seen in recent years, and it's something that Meta isn't going to be able to ignore. The hype from the Steam Frame for so long and the primary focus of PC VR for the Steam Frame is going to bring a spotlight back away from standalone VR, in some instances, to PC VR. Initially, when standalone launched on the original Oculus Quest, there was massive pushback from PC VR enthusiasts because standalone just wasn't great at the time. It was standalone, but it didn't do anywhere near what a PC could do. And even though the Quest 3 still doesn't perform close to what a PC can do for virtual reality, the gap has definitely shrunk in recent years for what's possible in standalone VR. Well, the Steam Frame is likely going to shift that focus back to PC VR to some degree. Even though, again, it is possible to play standalone games on this, and I think you're going to see developers launching games specific to the Steam Frame that are likely ports from Quest 3 games specifically. It also changes how Meta needs to respond in the next year. I'm talking Quest 3 firmware and performance updates and Quest 4 strategy. Bringing in competition from Valve is huge, and I honestly think that Quest 3 owners might actually benefit even more than those that are going to buy into the Steam Frame ecosystem. Quest 3 firmware and updates is kind of in a precarious spot right now. There's a lot of issues that are popping up in the most recent PTC, and even in the normal public release channel. Meta really needs to double down on making sure that performance and firmware are working properly so they don't drive people away from their headset towards the Steam Frame. This is why competition is such a good thing, because it means that there is stakes. Meta now is going to see these stakes and have to work harder to keep people on their platform. It also will probably affect the strategy for their Quest 4 launch, which isn't expected until around 2027. But we could see some information or some leaks, or at least some rumblings about what that could include in the near future if they want to try to take some of the spotlight away from Valve in 2026. Increased competition overall brings better games, better updates, and better optimization, and likely better hardware in the next generation. Like I mentioned, the Steam Frame, at least in Valve's mind, is primarily focused on PC VR streaming, which is amazing. Having the option to plug a dongle into your PC for extremely low latency, just super simple to use PC VR streaming is massive. And a lot of people are going to be very, very happy with that. When it comes to standalone on the Steam Frame, though, there is a lot of things that we do not know. What we do know is that based on the same type of architecture or hardware or software, I should say, that the Steam Deck runs, you will be able to install actual PC VR games onto the headset so you can play them standalone, just like you do with the Steam Deck. Now that sounds a lot more positive than it likely will be initially, or at least likely is, unless developers start creating versions that run native on the Steam Deck. I'm not a super brilliant technology person when it comes to software and hardware, but what I do know in my looking into this is that it uses emulation, or a couple different emulation layers, to allow you to play games that are PC VR. So even though the chip in the Steam Deck is slightly more powerful, or around, 25 or 30% more powerful than the Quest 3's chip, likely it'll take additional power for these emulators to actually take what the PC VR game is doing and allow you to interact with it and play with it on the headset. Now, I don't know what that equates to. Likely it'll be around the same resolution or the same quality as a Quest 3 game, but allowing you to play a PC VR game. But even then, I think it's going to have to be optimized. This isn't going to be a situation where you're playing Half-Life Alyx in Ultra on your Steam frame and it's going to work standalone. Likely the best games on this will be brought by developers that are porting games from platforms like the Quest 3 or taking PC VR games and creating specific versions designed for the Steam frame. It's the same thing with flat gaming on the Steam frame as well. You can take Steam games that are flat and play them on a giant screen inside of the headset, which sounds amazing. But again, until we really get our hands on this device and get a lot more information, besides what we've seen for extremely curated demos, we don't really know how it functions, how well it works, or what kind of fiddling and messing around it's going to take to get things to work exactly the way you want to. Now, that isn't necessarily a negative for those that love that type of thing. I personally like to just put my headset on and play. So I'm hoping that there's an aspect of this that actually allows you to do that. And I'm sure there will be Steam frame verified games that will actually allow you to do that. I know that there are developers that are bringing their games to the Steam frame specifically, and likely those will run the best natively. Realistically, the Steam frame is going to end up being for a totally different audience than the Quest 3, or at least a split-off audience. Primarily PC VR gamers that really want that Steam PC VR experience seamlessly without running into issues, which the Quest 3 has plenty of depending on how you're trying to connect wirelessly through the PC. You're also going to get those that hate meta and want to get away from the Quest no matter what it is and no matter how, hard the experience is to use or just how much fiddling you have to do. They'd rather be away from meta, and I get that. That's completely valid. The Steam frame itself is a very interesting piece of hardware, and there are some things that I think it does really well, and some things that I think I'm disappointed in, or I don't think I'm disappointed in, I am disappointed in, such as the black and white low-res pass-through cameras. Yes, it's true, it's not going to be based around mixed reality, so you don't really need those, but if you're going to be playing flat games in VR, I would much rather play on a flat screen in my actual environment and see my environment so I can grab a drink or see the people in the room than have to be in a void or, even a virtual space. I'd much prefer a high quality pass-through. And the Quest 3 is like the minimum now for me that works just at that line. Quest 3S, Quest 3. Quest 2 is abysmal. And if the Steam frame is at that resolution and that quality pass-through, it's a huge miss for me. And I know not everyone feels that way, but in my mind, it's a massive miss, especially when it comes to playing flat games. One of the biggest differences is the weight distribution. Everyone's saying how much less the Steam frame is going to weigh, and the primary reason for that seems to be that the battery and speakers are not in the actual face part of the headset. They're in the back or the strap itself, allowing the weight to be distributed better, which sounds a lot nicer, and it may be something we see with the Quest eventually, but because it's a more budget device, it's more likely we won't see that. So that part of the Steam frame does sound nice. My biggest disappointment, though, with the Steam frame is that we didn't get any exclusive game announcements. Like, if there would have been a Half-Life VR game announced, or even a Half-Life Alyx port, if you will, or Steam frame designed version, then that would have been massive. And I could have seen that really, really giving Quest 3 some competition. As it stands right now, Valve has come out and said that they're not working on any new VR games that are going to work for Steam frame at this time, which is really sad because it means they're leaving the platform of VR gaming up to the developers, which is great because, like with Steam Deck, that's what they did, right? They've brought the entire library of Steam to a handheld platform, and that's really cool. VR, though, needs an injection, in my opinion. And you can say whatever you want about Meta, but they have injected some money into creating some great games for virtual reality. Yes, they're exclusives to the Quest 3, and I know a lot of people would rather them be on PC VR, but games like Batman and Asgard's Wrath, and Asgard's Wrath 2, I guess if you're talking about both of them, and even the new Deadpool that comes out tomorrow, there's a lot of money being poured in still into games that are coming exclusive to Quest 3, and I think that's a big miss from Valve, in my opinion. I know that there are other developers that are going to come in and release games for this platform, so it's not going to be empty. But I still wish that they would inject some cash into bringing some original content to the Steam frame, because I think it would be a huge selling point for the headset. But like I said, they are primarily focused on PC VR streaming. So that kind of shows their hand, if you will, and the direction that they're really going with this. For me, the key takeaway is that it's not necessarily about which one is better. It's that the Steam frame means that VR finally has actual competition again. Now, it may not be direct competition with the Quest 3 because the platforms are so different, but I believe it actually means Quest 3 owners and then also Quest 4 owners, as we look over the next couple of years, are going to benefit highly from this. I think this will light a fire under Meta, I hope, and I think that this is going to increase VR gaming in the long run. My hope is that this shows Meta, and now I'm not sure how long it'll take for them to see it, and I really do hope a lot of people buy this headset. I hope it sells out, I hope it does really well and people love it, because what that'll do is create true competition, and Meta has become relaxed and lax on their updates, on their platform, on how things work, on gaming even, and bringing amazing titles. Yes, there are some here and there, but I think they could do more. And I think that this hopefully will show Meta that there is competition and light a true fire under their butts, so that the Quest 4 is a big step forward, and that the launch lineup is huge, and that we've got new games coming. We've got, updates that are really fixing things that need to be fixed. The platform gets fixed. There's a lot of things that this could really help Quest 3 owners with, and I think hopefully, I hope so. My fingers are crossed. I hope that is the case. But for me, Steam Frame's exciting, but I almost think that what this could do for Quest 3 owners could be more exciting, because I think that Meta is going to see this as competition, and Zuck and Meta, they don't want to be second rate, they want to be first. And I hope this really pushes the Quest platform to a totally different level. But what are your thoughts on this? Is the Steam Frame going to grab you away from the Quest 3 and take you away from the Quest platform? Is it not interesting to you at all? Maybe you're excited just for competition like I am, and you'll hope that Meta brings big things based on the fact that there's another big player in the VR scene now. Not just the VR scene, but the VR gaming scene, because there are other VR players. Samsung has their new headset out. Apple has their headset out. But now we've got a true gaming headset. I hope that Meta jumps on board with gaming again, and we really see a shift towards epic VR games. But that remains to be seen how immediate that will be to happen. Let me know what you think down in the comments, though. Thank you so much for watching. Don't forget to give this video a thumbs up if you enjoyed it, and subscribe for more videos. And as always, happy questing.